Blaze the doja, grab your loved ones and bring them closer. Extra, extra, read the poster, the KKP is taking over. Sleeping on me, better smell the Folgers. I've been razor sharp since the Motorola. Off of O, like the cover of Oprah. Popping bottles, feet all in the sofa. It's a celebration, though the times is hard. It's raining blessings, give it up to God. Chaotic culture, the greatest pod. With Ked the Pro, the one in charge. But it's a celebration, times is hard. It's raining blessings, give it up to God. Chaotic culture, the greatest pod. With Ked the Pro, the one in charge.
We're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast, the pod where chaos rules and Black culture is elevated and embraced. This podcast will deep dive into modern Black culture and how millennials and Gen Z can navigate the crazy parts from finances, music, Black business highlights, home ownership, HBCUs, sports, Black nerddom, anime, wrestling. We cover all that and everything in between. Live from the 7-5, I am the host and creator of the Chaotic Culture Podcast, the boy Ked the Pro, aka the calculated millennial, the cutlass diamond, aka don't be pushing on my buttons and my cutters unless you cutting, aka your favorite toxic adjacent king. Always chaotic, never toxic on most days. Back again, once again, with your favorite Black culture highlights and Black culture shenanigans. Now, despite the intro, this episode is going to be a little serious. This is a very, very important discussion that we are about to have. So I just ask that my audience members, if you are listening to this, if you feel triggered in any form or fashion, regardless of what's going on in your life, just be prepared because some of these answers may get real. It is what it is. We have to have this discussion concerning the leak about what. So, but before we do that, of course, we want to be sure that we introduce everybody that is speaking today. Starting off with the co-host of the show. First, I'm going to introduce Law, and then we're going to get out the way and then have the ladies introduce themselves. So, Law, if you're here, go ahead and introduce yourself, sir. And just waiting for him to see if he pops in. But we'll circle back.
My bad.
Oh, there you go.
Not the whole, yeah. Struggling with the mute button. But what's up, y'all? Good morning. You know what it is. Back again. Another riveting conversation. I'm ready to hear what these ladies have to say.
All right. Excellent, man. So with that, we will start with our first lady of the pod. Please, Miss Nasa, introduce yourself.
Hey y'all, good morning to all who is listening, all who is well. It's your girl Nasa, aka Tony Noir, the female Picasso. I hope everyone is doing well. We're gonna get into some good stuff. Good vibes only though. So let's do that.
Hey, indeed. All right, so we have a number of guests here joining us as well. First and foremost, I have to start off with the person who is joining us for the fourth time, if I'm not mistaken, on this podcast. Very, very, very friendly face around here. Or not so friendly face, depending on how you view it, but just a person and a kindred spirit who we always love to have around, especially when it comes to our anime takes. I would like to introduce, of course, from the Worst Generation podcast, Panda Da Don. Please introduce yourself, ma'am.
The not so friendly face part hasn't used. What's up, y'all? It's your girl Panda Da Don, better known as the OG Panda, better known as Pitbull Panda, better known as Panda with the Hammer from Worst Generation Podcast. Happy to be here for, like Kid said, the fourth time. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. As always, it's always a pleasure of having you on this space. Next, we would like to introduce the person. This is her second time on this pod. The last time that we had a conversation with her, it was actually for our Halloween episode, where we also again talked about more anime, but more so spooky anime, as well as just having a conversation about her page and some of the things that she enjoys as well. So we definitely got a chance to know her. I would like for Miss Eri, aka the TsundEri, to please introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Erica. I like to be called, oh my God, I forgot my name. I'm so nervous. Hi, my name is Erica. Most people call me Eri. I run a YouTube channel called TsundEri, where I talk about anything and everything having to do with anime. I do interviews, reviews, con recaps, and things like that. And I'm excited to be here because this is a topic that's really important to me. So thank you for having me on.
Yes, ma'am. We definitely appreciate you coming in. Finally, she is new to this podcast, but throughout our interactions, of course, we have, if you've paid attention to the podcast list we always shout out Inside the Mind of a Blerd. Here we have one of the OGs of the It Mob crew. Also the antithesis of the other OG that we interviewed at the end of season 2. And overall, also a joy to have on the pod as well. We would like to welcome for the first time Miss Cam. Cam, how we doing today? Please introduce yourself to the pod, ma'am.
I'm good. If you guys have had a chance to check out our pod, hopefully you do, Inside the Mind of a Blerd. It's me, Cam Kicks. So like I said, if you've heard us before, then you'll recognize my voice. If not, hopefully you'll decide to listen to us and listen to any of the ladies and gentlemen in this pod, because if you listen to this pod, then you're most likely going to find them. And a big shout out to my pod members. I always say they'll remind me that I forgot, so I try to make sure to shout them out. But today, I'm hoping we can, get some thoughts off on today's topic. And I'm glad that you decided to ask me. I'll try to give as much of a decent opinion as I can, because, everybody's opinion differs, but hopefully, we can at least be on one accord as far as this subject.
Absolutely. So thank you, Cam, once again for that introduction. For our audience, we also just want to let you know that I did try to get some actual law and legal experts here, but obviously their schedules are busy. But I still wanted to thank those women for at least even considering the offer to join us here. Next time that we have a conversation like that, I definitely want to be sure that we have some women who are in law, so that way they can give us their expertise on what they think is about to happen regarding situations such as these. So by all means, again, we are not law experts. We want to be sure that we're giving a valid opinion, but we as Black people feel as though this is a necessary discussion to have, especially among Black women. This is very, very important because it really concerns especially Black women and other women of color as well, but especially Black women. So this is why we're having this conversation. To the audience also, this is we're actually dropping 2 episodes this week. This is the serious one. This is the conversation that we need to have. And then I do have an episode that I actually dropped with another podcast that will also be dropping later on this week. So please pay attention to that. One episode will drop Wednesday, the other will drop Saturday. So just be on the lookout for that. This is not the first time that we've done a 2-episode week, but we've had the material to go ahead and just do that. So please pay attention. Of course, you know that we love to joke and we love to have a good time, and we just love to do all things chaotic. So if you're looking for the fun episode, that will be coming on later on this week. But right now, let's get into it. So today's episode focuses on the leaked draft opinion to overturn Roe v. Wade. For those who do not know what that constitutes, that was the decision held in the 70s, saying that pretty much women had the right to privacy. And that includes medical privacy as well. This goes into the rights of women being able to have an abortion, at least up to a certain time period before what we used to call in the old days the quickening. Now we see that, and this has been a 50-year fight, but we see that the our I don't want to call them friends, but the opposition on the right wing has continued to battle this issue. And now that they were able to stack the court during the former guy's presidency, here we are in a situation where Roe v. Wade may be overturned, which of course would mean that the rights to an abortion, or the rights to at least make the decision for body autonomy, is perhaps going to die. So with that, the first question that I wanted to ask, and then I'm going to get out the way and let our Black women answer this question, is, as Black women, what was your first initial thoughts when hearing about the leaked draft opinion that was set to overturn the decision of Roe v. Wade? And we can start with the First Lady of the pod, and then we'll go in the order of introductions as far as what our thoughts are. So Nasa, if you could please just share some of the thoughts that you had when you first heard about this situation.
All right. So when I first heard about the situation, I wasn't necessarily, I was a little shocked at first. I was just like, oh, like, no, I thought they were just playing. I was just like, oh, like, no, they ain't gonna overturn Roe versus Wade. Like, that's just kind of crazy. But then when I just kept like constantly hearing the stories, I'm just like, oh, okay, they're actually serious. And it's just like I'm not even like really shocked. Like, it's just another blow in regards to just women in general. And as a Black woman, we definitely get the blunt of it, because we were already at a disadvantage to begin with. So just for them to just state that, oh, just to have this draft to say that, oh, not just the autonomy of your body, you have no rights to that, but just your overall privacy is about to be stripped away, is like, okay, what do we do now? Like, where do we go now in this world? Like, it sucks. And I know that seems very vague, but it's just like, it's kind of hard to feel when the odds were already against us to begin with. So it's just like, here we go again. It's just one of those type of moments, how I feel. So.
Okay, I understand. Panda, what was your reaction?
I think for me, I'm kind of torn. Like, I had two different reactions. Like, the part of me that cares, and I hate to say it like that, because I've gotten to not numbness, but a point of where I'm just like tired, completely exhausted of this entire situation. Like Nasa had touched on it. Like, it's not really shocking that this shit. Sorry, I didn't mean to. That this is happening. Like, everything. This country is basically a dumpster fire. What's one more, addition to the flame? So part of me is just like, well, like, I mean, this is happening. This is here. And the other part of me is like, why? For what reason? Like, it's too much BS to be trying to control women's bodies, women's choice, and all this other stuff. So it's just the major part of me is just exhausted from thinking about it, exhausted from the idea that, like, if this is overturned, if I get pregnant, then like, and I don't want to have kids, then I'm SOL. Like, I think of like the worst case scenario, as I do with everything else in my life. So it's just this overwhelming source of like exhaustion from trying to just it takes a lot of energy to like care. It's not to say that I don't care, but it's just so hard to, because things are just going to keep going downhill. And like, really, what can I do about it? I mean, people are going to say vote, but obviously that's not going to work. So.
Okay, I definitely hear you. Eri.
So my initial reaction was disappointed, but not surprised. And honestly, more than anything, just a lot of anger, because it's like, it's not anyone's business what goes on with my body, the next woman's body. Also, this involves trans people too, what goes on with their body. it's not your business. And it was also because it's another way of trying to control people. It's another way of trying to disadvantage people of color, particularly Black people, because I believe Black women have the highest mortality rate when it comes to pregnancy. So it's all very intentional. And I think the other thing too, though, is honestly like genuine fear. Like I had to get off of social media for a bit because it's just Roe versus Wade is just the start. They're going to be going like next step is going to be birth control. It's going to be I forgot the different terms for it, but like different procedures that can like stop women from having children if they don't want to have children, which they already make that difficult to do. They're going to make it. There are states that are already considering making, even abortions that are necessary to like for survival, making those impossible or at the very least very difficult to access, like atopic pregnancies and things like that can actually like kill a person. And so it's just a lot of fear and just frustration because on top of everything else we've seen in the last few years. So those are my initial feelings.
All right, I understand. And last but not least, Miss Cam.
So with that, pardon my language, I was like, what the fuck? Because I'm glad Eri brought it up because I was gonna say the mortality rate for Black women dealing with maternity and pregnancy in any form, shape, and even just medical issues is very high. It's very concerning. It's very concerning. And a lot of the options and opinions available to women to be able to protect themselves, should something happen, is in the midst of getting ready to be taken away. And it just, I don't know, because some people, especially with the conspiracy theory, they were just, letting this leak out to kind of get a rise out of the crowd, to kind of peak the crowd and see how the crowd is feeling. Regardless of whether they did that or not, they definitely got the response. Whether they were looking for this one or not, they definitely got the response, because this is something that's very important. And I mean, if you look at the history of it, by like the 1900s, the early 1900s, different states were coming out with type of legislations to stop abortions. And I mean, at one point in time, if a mother died while you performed a abortion, it was considered murder. You were sent to jail for murder. So with that being said, I don't think it's majority men who tend to vote on this. They don't have a real understanding of women, and they don't have a real understanding of women, because I know the ladies may be familiar and some of you gentlemen may be familiar, but say if a woman decided she wanted to get her tubes tied, do you know that even if you decided to pay out of pocket, because majority of the time, 9 times out of 10, they are going to try to persuade you. So if you're single and of a certain age, of good childbearing age, according to them, they would try to persuade you to not do it. And if you are married or in some type of long-term relationship, they are pretty much going to require you to get permission from your significant other or your husband in order to do that, because they've just decided, oh no, you don't want to do this. You still may want kids, because some people, they've had all the kids they want. Some people don't want kids. And, sometimes it's also, you've had people who've had hard times with pregnancy and they rather just get away from it altogether. And they just rather get away from it altogether. But I could say, I'll say more later, but just the overall reaction, like a lot of things went through my head because it's not right, and it does affect especially Black women and women of color, and it does affect white women, and that's a whole different ball game in itself. But overall, it affects women strongly in the U.S., and it's something that we've got to take serious, whether even if it is just something that they supposedly let leaked out and nothing's going to come of it. There's, like Ear said, there is a snowball effect that is going to come with this if it is overturned. There is absolutely a snowball effect that is going to happen with this, because if you can easily look into somebody's face, millions of women, and say, I don't care whether you were assaulted and ended with the child, you're going to carry that child. I don't care if you have medical conditions that could be dangerous to you and your child, you're going to carry that child as long as you can. Like, what are you as a person to be that disconnected to be okay with that?
Very good observation. And we thank you for that, Cam. At this point, I did want to ask Law if he had a question that he wanted to pose to the panel here.
Not necessarily a question. I'm just listening to some of the answers that have been given, and it made me actually look up the percentage of men to women within the United States. As it stands now, it's 50%, 50.52% women to 49.48 men. And so that tells me one of two things. One, that we originate from women. We are brought into this world from women. And for something like this that's been established since the 70s to be quote unquote leaked about being overturned, it doesn't sit well with me, for the fact that women have always had a larger fight than men. It's always been an issue that has been talked about, but never truly addressed for actual ramification. And so when we see, I can't think of her last name, but she just became the Supreme Court justice. To see the fight and how they pretty much try to drag her name through the mud, and she went through such a battle to be established. It just recreates the rhetoric that, like, women are loved, but only for what is necessary of them. And as a male, I can't stand by, the political leaders who sit here and claim that, we should have healthcare and this, that, and the third, but only for certain demographics, i.e. people that don't look like any of us that are sitting here having this conversation. So, to see something like this go down, I just, but that's neither here nor there. Well, I mean, it's more here than there, but I'm gonna let y'all continue to break this down.
That's an excellent observation, Law. It just seems that women in general have always had the larger fight for rights, especially Black women in this country. If we say that women are treated or if we're going to talk about how the implications of overturning this could mean that women could go back to being considered second-class citizens, just imagine what that would mean for our Black women, how they've already been treated, and what those implications will serve if this were to stand. So that actually kind of goes into my next question for the panel out there. what implications could this decision have for you and your family? What are some of the healthcare repercussions we may have to face as a society? So let's actually go in reverse order, and let's start with Cam in regards to this question. So I'll just ask it again so that way everybody can understand. What implications could this potential decision have for you and your family? And what are some of the healthcare repercussions we may have to face as a society?
So as far as that, it goes back to my point. As I said, like medically speaking, like Black women are in constant, danger of inadequate care, from, simple routine checkups and, doctors not always believing you in what you say as far as like what you feel, to, even just the childbirthing process is a dangerous, like it is a beautiful, but it is also an absolute horror when you actually hear people, talk about it, and the things that come after, you even have children. So to know what they are hinting at, it's just going to be another layer of difficulty to know if you will come out on top, as far as your health and medically speaking. And although I don't have children yet, I would like to have children, whether that be, natural, or whether that be me adopting, which foster, whatever that is. I would like to have children, whether that be of my own or, whatever situation that comes my way. But just knowing like, hey, what if I have a night with somebody? This is nobody, it's not even anybody serious. It's not even anybody serious. And I end up with a pregnancy. Now we knowing that, okay, well, we're not prepared for this. I don't want to have a child right now, but here I am. And then once I'm with child, no telling what the medical experience is going to be for me. So it's just going to be a very, like, not even to just drive fear into everyone. It's going to be a tough situation because we're already living in a tough medical situation as Black women and Black people in general. So to just, like I say, add another layer of obstacles before us. And then also, I know everybody kind of runs into the ground, my body, my rights. It is your body, your rights, because everybody's not prepared, because it's a lot of people who have children who, they aren't like fit to be who they are to these children.
Excellent. It's funny that you brought up the my body, my rights, because obviously in the last couple of years, we've had the opposition, or we've had people who might have been anti-vax who've tried to use that same argument in regards to not getting the vaccine, despite the fact that whereas a pregnancy of someone else will have no effect on their daily lives, spreading a virus to somebody else actually takes away the other person's right to life. But that was still an argument that they used, so that way they wouldn't have to get the vaccine or have to mask up in certain areas, which is oddly enough, if this decision is going to be overturned, all the entire argument is thrown out the window, including private healthcare laws. But that's another story for another time. What I want to hear is Erica's answer to the question as well. So, Eri, what implications will this have on your family, and what are some healthcare repercussions we may suffer as a society?
So on a personal level, I have PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome. One of those, there's a myriad of complications that come with that. But one of them is that women with PCOS or people with PCOS are more prone to, I believe, 3 times as likely to experience miscarriages or difficulty during pregnancy. And one of the biggest concerns I have with the overturning of Roe versus Wade is that, like I said, they're not going to just stop with abortions. They're going to start really observing and violating the rights of women. And if you get an abortion, like, you yourself could face legal issues. Like they'll not abortion, I'm sorry. If you experience a miscarriage, they might, like, you could it's all like complicated thing, but you have to prove that it was you're gonna end up having to prove that it's a miscarriage, not an abortion. There's already been cases where women have had to go through that in more conservative states. The other issue is, again, they're more than likely, I mean, many states are already eyeing birth control and access to contraception. And when you have PCOS, birth control is a really, really important thing for you, because one of the symptoms of PCOS is that you develop a lot of cysts on your ovaries, and birth control helps lessen that, and it lessens a lot of your other symptoms, and it helps you live a more normal life, a more comfortable life, with a lot less health issues, like such as cysts like rupturing, which is a very painful experience. So that's one of the things I'm concerned about, is like how it's going to affect women who have issues like endometriosis, PCOS, and just different types of like reproductive health issues, and how like restricting abortions, restricting birth control, really honing in on women and essentially trying to force them into unwanted pregnancies, like how that's going to affect us like health wise. Another issue I have is so one of the things that really sticks out to me, and Cam kind of touched on this too, is that there are a lot of people out there that, unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, I'm trying to make sure I phrase this right. There are a lot of people out there who simply are not fit to parent. It could be because of lack of resources. It could be a lack of mental health resources. It could be just the lack of desire to be parents. Parenthood is not for everyone. And one of the things that stuck out to me a lot during my time as like a journalist is how many stories I wrote about just children who were born into families that did not want them, that were not prepared to them and like prepared for them, and the horrible things that they went through. Everything from abuse, abandonment. I remember just poring over like police records and just seeing things that like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Like just horrible things that I've seen kids go through. And that's not to absolve parents of like those parents of their responsibilities, because at the end of the day, there are many parents that were not prepared to have children. They didn't put their kids through that. But ultimately what happens is when you force people to carry unwanted pregnancies to full term, and you're not, as the government, you're not going to give them proper access to food, childcare. You're not going to do anything. You're not, we all know therapy, all that stuff is very difficult to access. You're not going to give them access to proper mental health resources. You're not going to give people access to proper sex education. You're going to end up with people who did not want to have kids, having children, not knowing what to do with them. And maybe they have their best intentions, but ultimately, like you can't just bring a kid into this world without those things in place and expect it to go right for everyone. I have a friend of mine who is a caseworker. She works in the foster care system. The things that she's told me she's seen with a lot of these parents who had kids and did not have the resources to properly care for them. It's like there is no, oh, I'm concerned about the children, and these children have a right to life or whatever. You're concerned about the unborn, but you're not concerned about the kids that are already here. You're not concerned about what happens to them when they are born. You want us to carry them to term, but then when they get here, you're just like, well, you're on your own, figure it out. Should not have had sex. It doesn't make sense. There's like a cognitive dissonance. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I hope that all made sense.
Sorry, my mic was having a little problem there, but no, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. When it comes to that, which is something that I always cannot stand, is when people claim that they're pro-life. I'm like, no, you're pro-birth or anti-abortion, because once those kids get here, then you don't care what happens to them. Because otherwise, if you were pro-life, you would care about having universal health care. You would care about having mental health care for these kids. You would worry about, having free education and having these different resources for when they are here, instead of them getting stuck in a system that ultimately dooms them.
Absolutely.
So with that, I just wanted to go ahead and ask Panda the same thing, her thoughts, and then we'll get to Shanasa.
For me, like outside of the potential of me getting pregnant if I were to have intercourse, it doesn't directly affect me like specifically, because part of me is very wary of whether I want kids or not. So, and that kind of leads me into Cam and Ari already touched on this. So like as someone who works in mental health, I'm just gonna say it, like I love doing therapy, but literally therapists and counselors and people working in mental health are literally putting a band-aid over a bullet wound when it comes to mental health, because there are so many factors. And I work with kids too, which really kind of adds to what I'm gonna say next. Like Ari's absolutely right. Like I come across some lackluster parents. And especially since I live in the South, where some parenting techniques are borderline abusive, whether that's physical or mentally and emotional. And I think I tweeted this like a couple of days ago. Like people want people to have parents, but there are too many crappy parents around for people to really want that. Like I've run into like people have kids, and of course it's due to because they were forced to have kids, or people given the access to people who shouldn't have kids but had kids. And of course, like Ari says, not to absolve them, but of course some people were placed in terrible positions, aren't mentally, emotionally, if it like, of course you can have all the money, a supportive significant other, you could have all these other things, but mentally and emotionally, you don't, if you're not ready to be a parent, your kid ends up in my office or in the office of some other child psychologist, child therapist, because what you're dealing with and what you chose not, like you aren't dealing with, directly impacts your child. So, and then imagine how that goes for people who don't have the resources for contraception, who don't have the resources to take care of kids, who don't have the support system. So like y'all are all right, they're very much pro birth, but not pro anything else. Like, and for people always love to say, well, you can give the kids up for adoption. The foster care system and the adoption system in this country is absolute garbage. And we're not going to act like too many kids have experiences of being abused, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotionally abused, being jumped from home to home. I literally had clients who were siblings come to an intake, and a week later when I went to go visit them at the school, they were gone to another foster home. Kids are taken from one home to the next, and one home might be better than the other, and they may conflict with the foster parent. It's so easy to say, oh, you could just do this, but it's not easy. It's not simple as just two steps in, oh, problem solved. No, these are children, and children grow into becoming adults based on how they were raised or what they've experienced. Like it's frustrating especially from a mental health care standpoint, how people are just so easily, and I think it's also a perception of how children are treated. Children are not seen as autonomous beings. They're just seen as, oh, you just give them food and shelter and you're basically a parent. And that's not it at all. And that idea contributes to a lot of issues that kids deal with, and a lot of behaviors that people see as quote unquote problematic, not realizing that your child is behaving in a way that what they see at home. Even if you want to say you're a good parent, or you're trying, even if you're trying, not to like crap on people who actually try, it's still directly impacting your child and how they take in the world and how they interact with everything else. I don't know if that last part made sense, but it's just it's frustrating, especially when you talk about community mental health, because that's where I work. I have a caseload of 60 kids by myself. It's a lot, and I care about each and every one of my kids, but I wish we had more resources so we can give those kids more than what I'm trying to give them, more than what my company is trying to give them. But of course, everything is so interconnected, from finances to healthcare to all these other things. it's difficult. So that's my thought process on it.
Hey,
Okay.
Kid, before we get the last answer, just to piggyback off of that, the average for to have a regular birth in the hospital is $13,000. So with that point being said, so say if you have complications and you have to have a C-section, that's another $6,000 added to it. It's $22,646 for the C-section. So, like,
don't forget, they like to charge to touch the child for you to hold your own child. So we're adding on to that.
Yep.
So couple extra bands onto that. So,
so in this situation where, like Panda said, growing up in the South, some of the disciplinary actions that parents would take are deemed as abusive. It's more so of people minding the business of others as opposed to realizing that, okay, I have a house of 5 and I can't take off from work to come in and get you right in school because I need you to go and get your education. So it's so many different rabbit holes that all of these things can get compiled into that plays a big part into a lot of this stuff.
No, that's a very excellent point, man. What a lot of people don't realize, and maybe some realize, but really can't do anything about, is that it does cost to have children. When we're talking about just the child being born in and of itself, which you just described there, as far as the hospital bills, on top of the fact of child care costs, in general, from the time that they're born all the way until the time that they've reached what this country calls, of course, independence, whether they be 18 or 21, whatever the case may be. It's really, really, when you put that into perspective, not everybody can afford the opportunity to have children when it comes to that. So yes, you want to have the freedom to do as you please, but you have to take into consideration that not everybody can just afford to do this, which is another big implication, especially for women of color and especially Black women, because a lot of things that I've seen on the net were how this would be an opportunity to continue to keep Black women in poverty situations. So it's really, really mind-boggling to think that that's the case, but it is exactly is the case. And we want to, as a society, especially as Black people, we've always been, seems like we're trying to dig out of a 6-foot hole that we just keep getting put into, no matter what the situation is. It's like we don't dig the hole ourselves, but every time we try to dig ourselves out, they make the hole deeper. So, Nasa, I just wanted to get your response as far as what implications this may have on you and your family and some of the healthcare repercussions that may come with it.
So I know for me personally, I do want to have kids and I do want to have a family, but the issue that stems from all of this and a real big issue for me is that it sparks kind of like a really strong anxiety for me because it's like, well, am I going to be mentally prepared? Am I going to be physically prepared? I don't even know if I have fertility issues, and those things definitely go into play when, wanting, if even in thinking about having a family. But the issue I have is just like all of this is extremely contradicting. You say, oh yeah, you're pro-life, but you don't have any type of plans to make sure that that child has proper care. If we stop at just the children and just as adults, housing is skyrocketing. Y'all won't lift up the minimum wage, so we're still stuck. You have to have at least 2 or more jobs just to survive. Imagine having that on top of kids to make sure that they have a decent life and comfortable life. So not only that, are you trying to figure out how to have some comfortability for yourself, but you're also trying to have some comfortability for the child. You have to, they charge us pretty much everything in regards to the childbirth, the checkups, the medicine, just to hold my child. I'm being charged hella bands just to do that. And so there's nothing put in place, but yet there's nothing put in place to actually make sure that the child is successful, but yet you still want me to put a child into this world, which I find very contradicting. The world is already messed up and there's nothing in place it doesn't even seem like we're progressing forward. We are very much so progressing backwards. And I look at my nieces, and I have nieces, and I look at other family members who are younger than me. And I'm just like, well, what if they want to have children, or not even just have children? What if, and God forbid that something happens where they could possibly be sexually assaulted or raped, and they cannot get rid of something that has caused them traumatic distress. Like, they can't get rid of that. And then on top of that, we're looked, even if we do have an abortion or a miscarriage, or we have other reproductive issues, we're going to be looked up as felons. And that's a big issue for me. Why am I going to be looked at as a felon or a criminal for just basic natural, for my basic female anatomy? I'm a criminal because of that. And so so that means I'm looked at as a criminal. On top of that, they're making us breeders. That's basically what it is. It's just I feel like it's just a money game. You have no regards to what happens to me or the child once this child is prepared, whether you don't give a damn if I'm emotionally or physically or mentally ready. It is a money game. You want to fill holes. And because I feel like because of this capitalism and just this patriarchy, they want to hold such power, and it's like a power trip. They're making us women fill those gaps, and not only just fill those gaps, but I don't know. I feel like I'm just rambling on, but the whole point is, it's just like it's really contradicting, because there's nothing in place for when the child comes. The foster cares, even in the foster care, like Panda said, that shit is trash, and that's also a money game. Everything is about money, and it sucks that we have no real say so in regards to our bodies, but you'll want us to be breeders. Y'all charging us for everything else, but you have nothing in place for us to take care of these babies. You have nothing in place. And that's the frustrating shit about it. Like, I'm looked at as a criminal. I'm looked at as a breeder. I'm already have a mortality. The death rate for us as a Black woman is through the roof. You have nothing in place. There's nothing. And so why would I want to bring somebody into this world where I don't even know if I have the proper means to take care of it? So, I mean, that's just really my thoughts. And like Cam said, it will be a snowball effect. If this does get overturned, there will be a snowball effect. You will see a rise in females trying to figure it out as far as abortions. If that shit is illegal, us women gonna figure it out one way or another. Okay, we can't get a plan A, we can't get a plan B. Okay, well, we're going to go through C through Z. Like, that's point blank in regards to that. They want to get rid of contraception. And honestly, to be honest, I feel like if they're requiring us to get pregnant, and it's so-called God's will for us to get pregnant, okay, then there needs to be some way that men get hold accountable in regards to this. Okay, so once you impregnate me, you are immediately now on child support, or some way, somehow you get written up and you're obligated to take care of the child regardless of the situation. But I feel like that's a topic for another day. But like, they want to hold us women accountable. Okay, well, these men need to be held accountable. Okay, let's get rid of Viagra. Okay, let's get rid of that. It's always been a male this always feels like this is a male enhancement thing, and we are taking the blunt of it.
I absolutely agree with just about everything that you said here. One of the comments that you made reminded me of the Supreme Court justice that got rammed through right before Biden got elected, for Amy Coney Barrett, who made a comment during this draft leak. And in the draft leak, she had mentioned pretty much a domestic supply of infants. And that comment really struck a nerve with me. And I'm not even a woman, but the moment that I saw that written was something that really, really, really bothered me, because now it's like, okay, not only is this about control, but this is also fear, because this goes back into conversations that professionals have had regarding how our generation is actually having kids the least. This is not the baby boomer generation where everybody's having a baby. People are trying to make informed decisions about having these pregnancies and growing their families. And sometimes you have situations where those of us who are millennials and Gen Z, we don't have the necessary means to take care of a child. So to hear something like that means that they are trying to force actual people to have and carry these pregnancies to term because of a way to stop the bleeding on their end for those who are on the Caucasian side, because they are actually having babies the least, and they actually have the most abortions out of any of the demographics in the United States. So that is a really alarming statement, and that's another conversation for another time regarding, how certain people may feel about them losing their power. But again, another conversation for another time. So before we get into the snowball effect, because I actually want to save that question for the very last question right before we wrap up, but I have a few more questions for the panel here. So this actually kind of reminds me of just the situation that most of the women here are in, because when we talk about I believe the word is ectopic or ectopic. I can't really pronounce that.
Ectopic.
Okay, ectopic. So when we talk about those kinds of pregnancies, and in situations where either the pregnancy does not make it to the uterus, and then at which point that clump of cells either dies, or the woman could die, and if they somehow manage to survive, they could end up with certain diseases and conditions like sepsis. So when we see in a situation where you could get punished despite the fact that the pregnancy has no chance of living and no chance of going to term, and it's either the clump of cells dies or the mother and the clump of cells dies, that really, really bothers me a lot. And I just wanted to get a quick opinion about, how you feel about that as well, because again, that is a certain, health topic that goes into these discussions. It's like, well, what if it's in the case of there's no chance for survival at all? You mean to tell me that these women are still going to get punished because they chose to, or they're trying to get it aborted, because it either means their life or both of their lives? So real quick, I'm gonna start with Eri this time.
My opinion on that is that's it's like genuinely terrifying for me, because again, like I have PCOS, and like women with PCOS or any like reproductive health issues, PCOS, endometriosis, any of that, they're more prone to miscarriages. They're more prone to having complicated or life-threatening pregnancies. Another issue too is that as Black women, like, we know often when we go to the doctor and we're experiencing pain or we're experiencing issues, we're not listened to quite often, and that happens a lot during pregnancy. I remember even I remember like, and I know like she's rich, but like still, like even Serena Williams, when she was pregnant, she almost died because I think she kept talking to her doctor that she was in pain or there was something going on with her, and like she was not getting listened to until it almost became too late. And that's something that, and she's rich, you know, like, and that's something that happens to like everyday working class Black women all the time. Like, we don't get listened to. I was diagnosed with PCOS like in my late 20s, like last year, and I've had the symptoms my whole life. My mom also had the symptoms most of her life. And when we went to doctors, they would just say like, oh, sometimes women just have irregular periods, take some birth control, figure it out, whatever. And we didn't like, and it took like 26 years. It took me 14 years to count from when I started my period. It took me like 14 years to get diagnosed. If I had been listened to early on when I was younger and I was experiencing intense pain and all that stuff, it wouldn't be an issue. So it's like, if we're already not getting listened to now, imagine like when we're at a point where you could be seen as like a criminal if you experience a miscarriage. You're now prohibited from getting a life-saving abortion. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it puts us at so much health risk, legal risk. If they're not going to listen to you when you say that you were experiencing pain, they're not going to listen to you when you say, I miscarried, I didn't get an abortion, I miscarried. It's so many different, it's so hard to explain. It's so intricate, but there's so many bad things can happen from that. Yeah. Yeah.
Kate, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Are you talking? I can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Lord, thank y'all for.
Sorry, I was like,
so I got distracted because I'm sitting here trying to look up statistics and look up some sayings and things like that. So, thank you, Eri, for that. And thank you for actually sharing your condition with us. You didn't have to do that, but just hearing that, actually is.
I don't mind sharing it.
Yeah, it's definitely an eye opener. For those of us who, you know, are concerned about our Black women, because you do have women out there who suffer from these conditions, and it's, when it comes to reproductive health, it's really important that we have this knowledge about our friends. So I just wanted to ask, did anybody else want to comment about that situation regarding you know, having to perhaps be labeled as a criminal for things in that nature?
I don't know if anybody else was gonna go, but
I'll go after you. I'll go after you, Kim.
Okay. So if you've, you know, been on the net at any point in time, you know, after it was leaked about Roe versus Wade, it really started amping up on people providing, you know, resources on, you know, pills and things that you could get to, you know, help for at home abortion. And it just goes to the fact, it was what, before they legalized before they legalized abortion in a lot of these states, it was for at-home abortions, the death rate was at 20%. So it was at 20%, and it probably was higher, but then again, who's going to want to kind of explain that? Because there is already, they give you shame for wanting to recognize that you don't want, not even want, or whether you don't, it's not the time for you to have a child. It's not the time for you to have a child. And like I said earlier, if you don't even want children, because also women out there, it's okay to not want kids. It is absolutely okay to not want kids. And that plays another part because you get shamed. You get shamed for wanting to, not have a kid now or ever. And just knowing what this is going to turn into in people's homes, because they were sharing resources of like pills, to medication to take. And, when you have to pass the child, you basically have to have your story together, because if you give any type of inkling that you force this the miscarriage of your child, like if you force the abortion of your child, you're going to be prosecuted. They are going to try to prosecute you, which is absolutely is ludicrous. It's a ludicrous situation that, this is happening. And they're saying not to stockpile up on plan B, because plan B does have an expiration date. And it also there's a matter of weight too, that like I know a lot of people don't have a chance to read it, because usually when you're taking plan B, you ain't got time to completely read it through. And like 150 and up is not a guarantee to take. So if it doesn't take, now you are with child because you thought you were safe. And what options do you have? Because everybody's family is not always going to be supportive. Because and also think about the young girls who happen to have, accidents and mistakes happen. Like it was where they did not have to, well, it still is too, well, with the way things are working, they could go, and have these procedures without having to speak with their parents. But you due to safety issues, they do, require you to have someone with you, for these procedures when you're of a certain age. But just think, because like you guys said earlier, sex education is a joke. Sex education is an absolute joke, because a lot of people are still learning themselves today at late 20s, 30s, 40s. They're still learning themselves today, and they don't have it where you can take it in school, not at all schools. And also a lot of parents, because they don't just always have the answer, or they make it an awkward situation to talk about it, they aren't discussing these things with their sons and daughters. So you have these young adults and teenagers who are having a change in their lives, and oh, this feels good, I want to continue to do this, and then there comes repercussions at it, but nobody's discussing it. And now you have this young girl and this young boy, now they have to change tremendously. They have to change tremendously. So with that being said, it's going to be a tough time, especially if this gets turned over. And then for birth control, because like Eri said, a lot of people do depend on birth control, especially to help regulate their hormones. And it's not even just necessarily they're taking it because they don't want to, be pregnant, but it does help more than just, oh, you're protected from having a child. And that's not even guaranteed. That's not even guaranteed that you won't end up with a child while you're on birth control, because there are times when those things do happen. Just like I was saying with having your tubes tied. You get your tubes tied, to have the choice of whether you want to have a child or not, because there is a reverse procedure. But there have been women who have gotten pregnant with their tubes tied. There have been women who have gotten pregnant with their tubes tied. So this, I basically say this to say that there are options out there, but I'm hoping we don't have to resort to those options as a full-time thing, because some people are in certain situations where they have to go that route, and it's good that they have those options. But if they are going to have people placing their lives, something like that, their lives in their hands, and they are not remotely prepared, it's if if they think it was bad before Roe versus Wade, just just think what it's going to be now. And I can tell you right now, nobody's going to take the blame. Nobody. Well, the people who we feel should be taking the blame for it, they absolutely, it's going to be, well, you should have wore protection, or you shouldn't have been indulging in sex, and so on and so forth. Just basically, no accountability is going to happen with all the deaths or permanent medical changes that a lot of these ladies are going to go through.
Excellent, excellent. Anybody else want to comment?
Yes, I will comment. Just kind of piggybacking off of Ari and what Cam said. This snowball effect, if this does get overturned, is going to be really major. Like, people are not taking into the fact that just pregnancy alone, the woman's body just goes through so many changes in those 9 months. Those changes are really critical, and it's not just, oh yeah, the baby's just growing inside of that. Like, we're going through morning sickness, we're going through a whole bunch of changes and hormonal changes. And just for example, I had a cousin who was pregnant, but was having issues with her fetus, due to having like blood issues. Like, she was having issues with her fetus because of her blood issues. And just with the ectopic pregnancy and just stuff that we cannot control, the moment that Roe, so if it does get overturned and those options are taken away, like, you are putting a lot of women in just like really serious predicaments, just health wise, just for their own safety. Birth control does help with helps with the balancing hormones. It also helps with not just relieving birth, but there are some women who have extremely horrifying menstrual cycles that are like very like horrible menstrual cycles that they use birth control to kind of like alleviate that. So you taking those options away, you're putting more and more you're putting women in danger. And it's already bad enough that as Black women, we have a huge mortality rate, because doctors don't take us serious. And so the fact that doctors don't take us serious, and then we're going to be put in a predicament where they're going to not take us even more serious. Like, it's devastating to feel like there is no care. And again, I'm going to say, like, it's all about the money, because they're not going to just try to take away birth control. They're going to try to take away condoms. So you're going to see an increase of not just a death rate, not just a child rate, not just a STD rate. But those are a lot of other issues. You're going to see a lot of inflection of abortion clinics in other states that are legal, an increase in that. So people are going to find other ways to try to get what they need. And just like Cam said, there won't be accountability, because it's going to be reversed, like saying, oh yeah, you should have used protection. Oh, well, you got rid of the protection. Oh, well, you should have used birth control. Well, you got rid of the birth control. Oh, well, you should have closed your legs to that rapist. Well, you told me that I had to take care of the child. I had to take care of his fetus. So there's nothing in place. It's, oh, well, as long as you do this, you'll be fine, but I ain't got nothing to do with it afterwards. That's the issue. And that's annoying as hell.
Thank you for that. Panda, did you have any comments?
I kind of wanted to add on, because like the more we talk about this, it kind of goes that, and for people who are religious, I hate to do it like this, but it kind of goes to the idea of the quote unquote, and I use it quote unquote very, very strongly, Christian values. You shouldn't be having sex. As a woman, you should just be sitting, staying in your place, closing your legs, and doing whatever your lovely husband tells you what to do. But if you're having sex, premarital sex, then everything that happens to you is your fault. You shouldn't have been opening your legs, or you shouldn't have worn that outfit. You shouldn't have flirted with that young man, and now you're pregnant with her person who raped you, his baby. It's just it reeks of not respectability products, like politics, but the idea of what women's place is when it comes to family system, the grand scheme of things. Like women don't need rights. Well, what we need those for? You should just be a good little wife and have your husband's children and take care of the home. And if he does something to step on in the marriage, it's all your fault. Like it's just this idea that what a woman is supposed to be in this country. Like that's what I think about. The more we talk about it, the more, like, not to say like there's nothing in place, because we're not supposed to be having sex unless it's with the man we married. And if we're unmarried, then whatever happens to us is just our fault as well. You shouldn't have been a spinster or whatever they call it these days. It's just frustrating. Sorry, go ahead.
No, Panda. Like you're definitely spot on. I would definitely say this puts things in perspective as for us women. Like now that they might or they will overturn this Roe versus Wade. It's more. It takes us. I feel like now it's even more our responsibility as women to make sure that we are on our P's and Q's when it comes down to just sleeping with anybody, or just sleeping around or just dealing with people in general, because we don't know what's going to happen. So it's just like now we really do have to be on our P's and Q's and making sure that we are on guard in regards to who we sleep with, because we don't know the outcome of what's going to happen on future references. And to the white Catholics or who are saying, oh yeah, that the child is at birth. Let's be very clear. In the Bible, if we're going to go biblical, it says life began at the first breath. So when the baby was born, that's when life began, not in the womb. And also, let's be very clear, there are several scriptures in the Bible that does state where God is saying, okay, we're going to have this abortion, where God is approving of an abortion. So he's pro-choice. So this narrative that white Catholics put that, God thinks it's an abomination and this, that, and the third. Oh no, God approves of it. So trying to make a mockery of that is real whack, and trying to force those views. And I saw a video today where this politician, he was basically addressing how a 13-year-old who is a rape victim would have to carry the fetus of that felon. And the response of the other politician, who was a white woman, stated that, regardless of her trauma, regardless of her physical trauma, she would still be able to raise a precedent human. She'll still be able to raise that person, and that person, that baby is going to be a stand-up human being. How contradictory? With what money, sweetheart? With what
mental health?
With what mental health?
Like care, like
exactly.
You don't traumatize this child.
You traumatize the child and expecting a child to raise a child and making sure that child is a stand-up human being. That makes no sense.
Listen, adults our age are still struggling. So
still struggling with that, or still struggling
adults
with their own
older
mental
than
health
us are
and their
struggling.
own physical traumas. But you want me to the trauma that I
purposely,
like the trauma I haven't even fixed. You want me to push that onto the child, like push that onto my child, and my child is going to have to reap the benefits or try to figure it out once he's an adult, that doesn't make sense. That's contradicting. So it's just like, okay, yeah, regardless of her, emotional state, she'll still be able to take care of that child. Absolutely the hell not.
Because something or some way neglect is going to happen.
Neglect is going to happen.
It's guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Can I just share like a quick example? There was in Jacksonville, one of the biggest stories of child neglect that unfortunately led to like that child dying was I can't remember her name, but it happened like right as the pandemic, like it happened right before the pandemic hit. But there is a woman, she was, I think, born and raised in Alabama, but she came down to Jacksonville. She, like, her adulthood was in Jacksonville. And I had to keep moving around with the cats. But she was in high school when she had her child. She was expected to, at the time, she was a straight A student. People like voted most likely to succeed. They had, like, people thought, oh, she's gonna go, to college, do all these things, all this stuff. She ended up getting pregnant. For whatever reason, she kept the child. She was not ready to have that child. She did not want to have that child. The father was not involved in the child's life. She moved to Florida, and the trauma of like, I can't speculate too much on that case because there's only so much that we knew, but it was like, if you put the context clues together, the trauma of her having that child, her family forcing her to have the baby, the father not being there, her having to lose out on going to college and do all of these different things, it really impacted the way that she saw and treated that child. And what she would end up doing was like, I think she loved her kid, but she didn't know how to do it. And she also wanted to live that life that she wanted to live before she had that child. And I can't remember it's been a few years. I can't remember the names. I wish I remembered because I don't like just saying that child. But basically, essentially what happened was she started going out, dating, having a social life, doing all this stuff. And she left the kid locked in a closet by herself with nothing but like canned food. And that child ended up starving to death. And that is like, I think what people, and it's like, it's a very dark story. And it's something that really happened. It's still an ongoing case in Jacksonville. And it's not to absolve that woman of responsibility, because there are plenty of people who have children when they did not plan to and they don't do that. But the thing is that when you force people to have children that they are not financially or mentally prepared to have, when you traumatize, because she was a child herself, she was only a teenager, when you traumatize these kids, that one government official saying, oh, when she's 13, that's an opportunity. You're traumatizing a child by making her carry a child that she doesn't want. Pregnancy is mentally, emotionally, and physically draining enough. Now you're adding trauma to it. You're putting you are putting future children's lives in danger, because like you're taking like, it's like, I'm not trying to excuse behavior. It's like hurt people. When you don't have the right like access to mental health, you don't have the right finances. When there's postpartum depression. There's
and
so
we won't even talk
different
about the
things that
ridicule you get for
contribute to
postpartum.
Right, the ridicule
exactly that too.
Like you can exactly, you cannot feel any type of way besides loving towards your child after you have it. So postpartum depression, like, don't even hint at it, because then they all of a sudden you're unfit and they want to take away your child, and it's just
not
like help could be
any help.
Exactly. But Eri, that's a actually good example, because it happens more than not.
Yeah.
It happens more than not.
That child was 4 years old when she died, and it was one of the saddest things. And this is something that disproportionately affects Black women. Because our mental health, people already don't regard us, our mental health, like, oh, she has an attitude, or oh, she's this, oh, she's that. No, she's depressed. Yeah. That's depression. Or that's ADHD.
Yeah.
Or
it's the same how they don't recognize it.
But you won't know, because it's like, well, Black girls have an attitude.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because that whole narrative, oh yeah, Black girls have an attitude, or you're just upset, or you're just that angry Black girl. No, mentally, I'm tired.
It's like it's just it's going to make it difficult for, we already have a hard time getting, having access to proper mental and physical health. It's going to make it harder for us to have access to like financial like mobility, because having children is expensive. There are women who unfortunately they couldn't go to college, they couldn't afford to do all these different things. Like having a child before they were ready changed so many aspects of their life. Like it's ridiculous. But I wanted to bring up that example because it's just a very real thing that happens a lot, and it's going to keep happening if they overturn Roe versus Wade. There's going to be so many children's lives that are going to be put in danger.
And the psychological impact of this is going to be it's my thing is like the psychological impact of this is going to be extremely major. Because just like how you mentioned, we already go through enough physically, emotionally, mentally, and so psychologically, it's gonna put a lot of children in the hands of bad parents who are not equipped to take care of that child. And so the process is just going to repeat itself of just, again, this money game of you'll be fine, and oh well, you should have closed your legs, and just whole contradicting ass shit that's going on already. So
some heavy stuff, man. It just from the story that Eri shared to everything that we've talked about from now, that actually reminded me of a tweet, and then I'm going to try to move on to the next questions that we have. It's one tweet says, still crazy how the Supreme Court won't force a 12-year-old to wear a mask at school, but they'll force her to have a fucking baby. Excuse my language. You've also got in response to the, if we're getting biblical, obviously, we've seen that a lot of the people who are right wingers have this fear that America will fall into Sharia law and so on and so forth. But it's like what you're proposing is much worse than that, because in a lot of Arab countries, they still allow for abortions to happen. One tweet says, in Iran, if a 12-year-old girl is raped and impregnated by her father, she must carry the baby to term or be thrown in prison for life. Wait, sorry, no, that's Alabama. So that's just a lot that goes into that. So while I am on the subject of this, I wanted to ask a question, and then Law had a couple of questions on his own before we ask the final two. So most of the women in this space live in a southern state. For those who don't know, area, of course, is from Florida. Cam is out in Texas, and then Panda right now is in Mississippi. So with having to live in a southern states, have those states that you live in currently, have they since tried to implement new laws or proposals banning the IUDs, contraceptives, Plan B, condoms, or other forms of abortion pills or similar drugs? Have they done that yet? Or at least try to?
You here in Texas, you guys know who we have in office, and absolutely yes. They
Four-wheel
tried, yeah, they've been trying even before the leak to take away abortion as a whole. And this league has just given them pretty much the go ahead, quote unquote, because they changed the law that basically, they got it to a point where after 6 months, late term is pretty much out of the question, because they actually were trying to, in some situations, to have it actually be, if it was even sooner than that. So basically they wanted to push you into the corner as much as they can to make you be responsible for having the child, the Texas heartbeat law. But with this leak, oh, it's just triggered like and I think a lot of people, as someone who's born and raised in Texas, I think sometimes people forget how much of a Republican state that Texas is. And I think because a lot of people end up running into people who are in the bigger city areas. So they kind of think that we're progressive and we're ahead. But like I tell people, we may be a big, the big cities, but there are a whole lot more smaller towns than there are bigger cities who have this frame of mind. So that's why it wasn't that hard for them to put it into place with these abortion laws and restrictions. And this leak has just started to cause another domino effect as to what they're wanting to do, because they were already gung-ho to just get rid of abortion altogether. But now that they know that basically the government may be, given the go-ahead, they ramped up the, advocacy, and it may not be considered advocacy, but it's still they have a cause and they're fighting for it, whether it's wrong or right. That's where it comes into play. But they have been advocating for it to just be abolished altogether. And like even going to the few Planned Parenthoods where they were able to perform abortions. Like if you see, and I'm pretty sure it may, I don't know, ladies, if it's the same in your state, whatever, wherever you are, but the trauma also that people don't want to talk about, that women who choose to go have abortions, like that they have to face to get it. Like these people don't know anything about these girls, nothing. And here they are outside loud as hell ridiculing them, and Texas is like all for that type of stuff. Texas is absolutely all type of for that type of stuff. And this is that, like I said, that leak just gave them the go ahead to just lose their mind. Because if you guys know, a couple of years ago, Texas wanted to change the history books from saying slaves to unpaid interns. Like that was us. That was us.
It was like unpaid workers, imported workers.
Yeah, exactly.
Wage.
Like they were literally trying to have it changed to have it be unpaid interns or unpaid, workers or so-called, instead of, that's why they're so up in arms. Like the CRT, like the accountability they don't want to have is just like driving them up the wall to be just like Texas would cut off their nose in spite of their face. Like they don't care if it doesn't, go, if it doesn't work for them. They don't care as long as they bring everybody else down with them. They don't care that something could be for the betterment of them. They would go in the opposite direction and sink their own ship. But they say, hey, your ship is sinking too, so I'm okay with my ship sinking. And that's pretty much what Texas is.
Do anything.
Still Southern hospitality, but yeah.
Tragic, man. That comment cam almost really had me say a few cuss words that I'm trying not to say on this platform, but I've already said enough.
I tell people, I'm like, unless you like, just with any of you guys' states, if you're not, there, like born and raised and see it, you probably, to outsiders looking in, they may not necessarily see the problems, because everybody got their own state issues they got to fight against just to, live in decency and respect. So when I tell people like Texas did like tried to change it to unpaid interns, it throws people off. But it's like this is the type of things that they're doing when they're sitting up here telling you the only way you can have an abortion is this, that, and the third. And even in extreme situations, they still don't want to give you the play. And I'm like, y'all, I'm as much as I love Texas, it's definitely a love hate. It's definitely a love hate, especially being a Black person in the South, in Texas specifically. So it's definitely a love hate. There's plus sides to it, but at the same time, Texas reminds you why it is Texas. Texas reminds you why at one point in time these fill in the blanks wanted to be an island. Like they tried for it. Like they tried for it to be counted, because Texas so big, to be a counted as an island. Like if you that delusional in it, clearly you not caring about your people. So as I said, this leak really gave them the go ahead, I guess they were looking for, to absolutely lose their damn minds even further.
I see. Anybody else want to comment on the question? Has your state tried to ban all of these things already, or are they having proposals, getting ready to try and ban contraceptives, Plan B, condoms, etc.?
So in Florida, I had to look it up because I wanted to make sure I got my information right. So prior to Roe versus Wade, Governor DeSantis, who is one of the most horrible people in the world, he's from Jacksonville. He's a terrible human being. He signed a bill back in April banning abortions after 15 weeks. That bill does not, so like if it's a situation in which the mother or child's life is in danger, then it does not like cover that. You could still get an abortion, but even then you still have to have 2 doctors sign off on that, which is like time is of the essence in those cases. So that still creates an issue. The other issue is that abortion ban, it does not make exceptions for cases of rape, incest, or what was the other one? Hold on. It doesn't make exceptions for cases of rape, incest, or human trafficking. So if you get pregnant in any of those cases and you find out after 15 weeks, which many people do find out that they are pregnant after 15 weeks, that's still pretty early on. You can't get an abortion. So that was before Roe versus Wade. Now I've lived in Florida most of my life, and DeSantis is from Jacksonville, which is like the city that I'm from. And he has made it very clear that he's super, super conservative. So with the whole Roe versus Wade thing, I already see that him possibly making a case to ban, if not ban abortions outright, then make it so that you still can't get an abortion even if your life is in danger. So that's just my off of just what I know of him and what I've seen him say and do in the past. So that's one of my concerns. A lot of people, it kind of like Texas, I think a lot of people have like a liberal view of what Florida is like, because like spring breakers, Miami is here, Tampa, Orlando, and all that. But like those are just a few cities. Anywhere else, it's very, very conservative. Even Miami is actually very conservative because it's a lot of like Latinos from like straight from the Caribbean. So it's very like they're like, that's a very conservative culture in of itself. So like it's kind of like that. People have like this liberal view of it, but Florida, like it's still a majority red state, and they've made it very clear they don't care about women's reproductive rights. So yeah.
I see. Panda?
I had to look it up too. As far as birth control and stuff, apparently from what was said by Reeves, Governor Tate Reeves, that flat face. Anyway, is that they're not focused on birth control or any contraception at this time. But of course, Mississippi being a very conservative state, of course they're not going to. They're of course banning. They banned abortion, I want to say in 2018, from what I remember. But as far as contraception, that's what he says, that they're not focused on it at this moment. With it, is that subject to change? Quite possibly. It wouldn't shock me. Mississippi is Mississippi. So honestly, truly, I hate to say it like that, but that's just is what it is.
Hey, I understand. I definitely understand. So what we're gonna do here is we've got a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up here. We'll try to go as quickly as possible. To our audience, of course, if you're listening at the middle in this right now, I just hope that you were able to at least gain some understanding of why this is such an issue, and if this stands, if this decision does stand, what the consequences will be. And then we haven't even gotten into all the consequences that actually kind of rolls into my next question, and then we'll end off with kind of like a 2 or 3 part question here. So this next question actually has to deal with the snowball effect. We talked about, if the decision stands, what women will be, forced to do in order to make it happen regardless. We know that if they do overturn this, that in certain states, safe abortions will be banned, and sometimes women will go back to unsafe methods, which could perhaps cost them their lives, and that's something that we want to try and avoid. But if, based on what Justice Alito had said in his draft opinion on how this enumerated right was not mentioned per se in the Constitution, and that there are plenty of other enumerated rights that were not mentioned. But if you go back to the 9th Amendment, for those of us who know government, it says that, the rights of the pretty much, I'm paraphrasing, but the, enumerated rights of the people should not be infringed upon. But that being said, because abortion is not stated in the Constitution itself, quote unquote, because Roe v. Wade was pretty much protected under the 14th Amendment, let's go into, do you feel if this decision stands, then other enumerated laws like the right for interracial and gay marriage and other privacy laws could be in jeopardy?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the Roe versus Wade doesn't just stop at abortion. It goes into interracial marriages. It goes to the LGBTQ community. It goes into gay marriages, trans rights. Like, privacy in general, as you know it, will cease to exist. Like, they're talking about, and this is just an example from what I've heard. There's an example is they will literally have access to pretty much everything that we do, from phone calls to, for example, for women, women, we have like a flow track just to keep track of our periods. They're going to have information to that. If it does get overturned, they could possibly have information for that, just for them to keep track of our cycles, which I think is quite disgusting because it's not your business in the first place. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it doesn't just go into people may think that it just goes into abortion, but no, our privacy, everyone's privacy is about to get violated. Like, if this gets overturned, this is just the start of it. It's like that snowball effect is going to be massive, and people are going to be pissed about it because people's privacy is going to be extinct as we know it.
I hear that. Anybody else want to comment?
Honestly, everything she said.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
you hit the nail on the head.
And hopefully this just turns out to be something they were BSing us about, although this is definitely not something you should BS about to kind of gauge your audience. But if it does, I hope it doesn't, I hope you ladies who end up in a predicament, I hope you guys have good support systems around you. And I mean, even if you don't know me and you just happen to come across me, whatever the case is, reach out because this is a very trying time for women and it's a snowball effect. So from, you know, everybody is going to feel everybody's going to feel it. So it may be predominantly women is where they're starting, and especially, with Black women, but everybody is going to feel this. And I hope it doesn't come to pass. And if so, ladies, start looking on the internet. Be careful with what you find because some of that stuff is not as legit. And make sure you have a support system because if you are somebody who believes in abortion, by all means. If you're somebody who does not believe in abortions, but you believe that people should have their right of their body, understand that too. But just be supportive of each other in this time.
I
go
do
ahead,
want
Eri.
to add on. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
I do want to add on. Okay, I do want to add on. Like in that note, like in the aftermath of this, if they do end up overturning Roe versus Wade, I think that I know that there's like this fear of, and we've talked about it, like we all feel like that this fear of like, what can this mean for our rights? What can this mean for our bodies? What can we do? A lot of us, myself included, don't really feel as if voting is enough. It's not really, it doesn't really help. Like I've voted and we're still here. So, but I do want this to highlight the importance of community involvement. We know that our government is not going to really look out for us, is not going to put our best interests in heart. The Pew Research Society has done a nationwide survey, and the majority of American citizens do not want Roe versus Wade overturned, but here we are. So I do want to highlight the importance of community involvement. There are many reproductive rights activists in every state who have made it very clear that no matter what the decision is, they will still be there to ensure that people have access to safe and accessible reproductive care, be it legally or illegally. And that's not, again, it's like, that's not the ideal situation. And it's not like the thing that most people want to hear, but I guess like, I just wanted to let people know, like, there have always been activists around who want to ensure that we have access to quality reproductive care. Back in the 60s and 70s, before Roe versus Wade was overturned, there was the Jane Collective. There was a group of women that provided underground abortions to women who needed them. Technology has advanced in 2022 in medicine and pills and accessibility has advanced in 2022 to like where we don't necessarily have to resort to some of the really scary and unsafe methods for abortion. And that's not to say like, oh, we have nothing to worry about, because that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that it's so important for community involvement and for us to come together and for us to really look to activists and for us to just kind of keep a pulse on these things, because our government may not watch out for us, but as neighbors, we can. As women, we can come together. As Black women, we can come together. I hope that all makes sense. So that's just something that I want to kind of put out there. It's like community involvement is going to be so important for us going forward. So I hope that all makes sense. Like,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I was like, I kind of ranted a bit.
Yeah. I definitely appreciate you guys for and you young ladies for actually coming aboard this podcast and discussing this actually, Eri, your actual last response kind of rolls into the last questions that we have. So I'm kind of gonna try and to roll this all into one, because when we talked about, we've mentioned voting a couple times on this episode, and I'm always of the opinion that voting is only a fourth of the battle. There's so much more that goes into, what needs to be done in order for us to gain what we're looking for. And unfortunately, voting is one of those things that you have to consistently keep doing over and over and over and over again. But there are other things that go along with that as well. That, again, that's only 1/4 of what we should be doing. There's so much more that we can do to help uplift the communities. With that being said, what is the next step for us as a community to fight against this power trip, against safe sex and body autonomy? That also has we also have a couple questions from Law regarding that as follow-ups. How would you teach our up and coming children about everything that we've talked about, and how can we shape the minds of not only men but women and men to think of these topics objectively as opposed to subjectively?
Can I don't know, can I go first if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
First and foremost, well, not first and foremost, but one of the things that you can do, every state has an abortion fund that's managed by activists, and this goes beyond just donating to Planned Parenthood. And that's no knock to Planned Parenthood, but they're a very big organization that actually does have a lot of funding. They're on the ground activists that could also use that funding. Looking into your state's abortion funds, there is a link. I could send it out if with the podcast you want to include the link anywhere. There is a link to you could find your state's abortion fund that's ran by activists. There's that. I also think in terms of talking to our children about it, one of the first things we can do is there's part of this stems obviously from the need to control women, but it also stems from these very puritanical views about sex and sexuality. Having a talk with your children about sex, and obviously modifying that conversation for as they get older, teaching them certain information when they're children, and then expanding upon that when they're teenagers, and so on and so forth. But having conversations with them that destigmatize sex and have them understand it as something that it's a natural human occurrence, is nothing to be ashamed of, because then that opens the door for them to talk to you about it in a comfortable way. That way they can, instead of trying to get information off the internet or from their friends, they can get it from a trusted adult. Talking to your kids about consent, talking to your your sons. If she says no, the answer is no. Do not ask her again. Do not try to coerce her. Do not threaten her. Do not follow her. She said no. That's a complete sentence. That's a complete answer. Let it go. Empowering women to young girls to feel confident saying no. Not being not putting a stigma on women or young girls for wanting to explore their sexuality. It all starts with taking away these very puritanical views of sex and sexuality, so that you can actually open the door for those conversations about consent and safety and things like that. Because part of the reason that there is such poor sexual education in this country is because sex is constantly viewed as something that is dirty, sinful, it's bad, it's this, is that. It's how we all got here. We all got here because our parents had sex. That's how we got here. It is what it is. We don't like to think about it, but that's how we're here. So it's just having those conversations that kind of take that stigma away from them at a young age, I think is a way to start. So that's my 2 cents.
I kind of want to add on to that. Eri's absolutely right about when it comes to talking to your kids. I want to be open and say that kids are not stupid. Kids are pretty much understanding as long as you just sit down and talk to them. I have some of my kids, specifically my high schoolers, who have talked to me about them having intercourse, TMI most of the time, but they talk about it. And instead of and of course, me trying to be, an adult in their one of the adults in their lives, I'm just be careful, get tested, be safe, and just giving talking to them, in case their parents have not already had the talk about that. Because the thing is, like, there's this whole fear, like, oh, if I talk to my kids about sex, they're gonna try and go have it. Your kids are gonna do that anyway once they discover, like, have discoveries, because they're around their peers. Outside of being in the home, they're gonna be around your peers more, especially more often, like more so than they're at home, especially when they're at school. Like some parents don't know that their kids are having sex, and some of my kids' parents don't know that. Is that my specific job to tell them? No, unless it's with, someone who's overage or something like that. Outside of that, despite the fact that they're kids, they're still my clients. So they still have that autonomous right to make that decision. It's just a matter of being open about, you know, like Ari mentioned, consent and all the things that go into consent, not just with sex, but like with boundaries. Like if a girl says no, if she doesn't want to go on a date with you or doesn't want to have sex, that doesn't mean anything. And that the vice versa. If a guy doesn't want to have sex with you, that doesn't make him gay automatically. Well, just like women deserve the room to explore their sexuality, so the men. And when I say that, like, it's not to, make it oh, but men do too. It's more so of men who want to explore sexuality, not just with women, right? Being okay with bisexuality. Not just gayness, not just straightness, but bisexuality. Because I think when it comes to a lot of, when it comes to sex and sexuality, a lot like men who are bi are automatically stigmatized, like, oh, you have diseases, oh, you have all this. So I think encouraging both boys and girls to explore their sexuality safely, that includes what are some testing sites that do testing for free, getting them checked at a young or early age, using condoms, both male and female condoms, all these things, teaching them not necessarily abstinence, because that obviously doesn't work, but teaching them being safe and being open with their parent, being able to, and also that's another thing, give your kids the room to make mistakes and be open with you. Because like, and I've heard like, oh, well, my mom or dad will tell me I can be open with them, but when I'm open with them, they get mad. And it shouldn't be like that. Like, of course, they're going to be nervous about telling you, but they shouldn't be condemned for something that is a natural occurring thing, right? Like if they catch something or they want to get tested, they feel like they've caught something. Like if I have kids, I would want them to come to me and be like, Mom, I think I've caught something. Okay, let's go to the doctor. Let's figure this out. So I think like talking to your kids and not being so terrified, because the world is scary, but you would rather them be prepared for it because you've opened the doors to that conversation than they hiding things from you, sneaking around, and then they catch something and then they don't know what it is because you weren't open enough to having that conversation with them. Now they're going to other people trying to figure it out, and those people aren't leading them down the right road. And sex is a naturally occurring thing, but you have to be accepting of the fact that eventually, if you have kids, your kids will be curious about sex. That comes with hormones, that comes with interacting with same, different, or all genders and sexes involved. And that's okay. It's okay to be nervous, but don't let that fear prevent your child, stunt your child's growth as a person, as the budding adult too.
I'm gonna piggyback off of what you said, Panda, because I think that's very key. For me, I think that not only do we want to create a safe space for children to, for those conversations to be had, but I also think that discretion and discernment is also a very a thing that we need to at least let our kids know in regards to when it comes down to sex. Because, yes, I do feel that, when we talk to children about sex, we shouldn't make it a very hard topic to discuss because it is a natural thing. But I think that children should know, if they do want to partake in it, to have some level of discernment when it comes down to doing that. And also as parents, I feel like for parents, I think it's very key also not to project your own personal views as far as what sex is to you. because I feel like oftentimes parents may project their views in explaining how sex works to their children. They may project their views as far as what it should be or how it should be, instead of just giving that space for the child to just kind of explore on their own and make that decision for themselves. Like you said, Panda, children are not stupid. And if you give them that space to have that understanding, they will move accordingly. But not projecting, and also using discernment, and also creating a space of understanding and vulnerability is key. And I think that will be it will benefit children more if a lot more adults and a lot more parents did that. Now, in regards to I guess support in guess of support, there are a lot of abortion clinic fundraisers and foundations that do raise money in regards to support of women's health and reproductive issues, in regards to making sure that there is birth control available and contraceptives available, in regards to how do we educate the men, how do we educate men in women, in regards more so men, so that that the views is not so subjective. Honestly, male ego has to be put to the side. I feel like in order for a man to really understand what a woman, that ego has to go. The pride has to go. You have to have some level of understanding. You have to gain some level of understanding. You realize if a man understands that he came from a woman, then he should understand that he has no right to tell what a woman can do, since you came from a woman. And I do feel like a lot of this, even with the Roe versus Wade, has to do with a lot of male ego. It's a lot of male ego that has been married to the patriarchy and a lot of capitalism, and there is no understanding. It's just control. So in order for understanding to come amiss, the ego has to go away, and you have to be receptive to understanding. And so and then also with women, this is another opportunity for us to use discernment and discretion. If it does get overturned, it is in our best interest to use discretion, because not only to save, because that is in your best interest to save your life. Like, use discretion at this moment. So,
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for that. Cam, did you have any other comments about that?
I mean, these ladies, they done laid it down. They done absolutely laid it down. And like discernment, very much so. Discernment has to happen, but also be careful, because the other thing I know people probably don't want to talk about or don't want to think about, people should also think about getting self-defense, start carrying things for self-defense, because it's already people who force themselves on others regardless, as it is now. But the number of births that may be resulting from these actions is definitely going to go up, and even not births, the number of deaths. People may not want to talk about that, because it may be a trigger warning, but it's absolutely the truth. As much as births may end up going up, deaths are also going to be on the rise from these women who are put in these predicaments, to women defending themselves with all ways possible. Because that's another thing that nobody's because nobody wants to think about anything that dark, but that's one of the things that's definitely going to have to be taken into account, because a lot of people don't respect consent as it is. So now you are dealing with someone who is not respecting your boundaries and, forcing themselves upon you. And once again, all of a sudden later, you are dealing with the child, because pretty much rape is going to be, they're not going to hold anybody accountable, because especially in what Oklahoma, they were saying, like, even if a pregnancy is a result of incest or sexual assault, it still, would have to be carried to term. But that's another like darker thing that has to be thought about. But these ladies have definitely touched on everything from the kids not being kids aren't dumb. And I know everybody else has said kids aren't dumb, because you can sit here now and think on the incident you witnessed as a child. And as you review it now, you realize that it was not the play. It was not the play. So if you yourself can recognize that there was an incident or an event in your life that happened while you were a child, what makes you think that this child isn't aware? They may not always be able to process it and put words together of what, they're witnessing or what transpired, but they are aware. They are aware. And discernment again, I'm not saying y'all not to go out and indulge in sex, because sex is just more than just being for reproductive means. It actually is a means of pleasure as well. But definitely, be careful. You can still enjoy yourself, but be careful. Make these people respect your boundaries and protect yourself by all means necessary. By all means necessary. So that's me on that.
I do want to mention, in regards to kind of men having this conversation, I feel like a lot more men need to speak on contraceptives for men.
Absolutely.
Because it's always, women should get birth control and women need to get their tube tied and all this, that, and the third. But I don't think y'all men understand that, yes, yes, it's fine for us to have, I guess, contraception. But the thing is that you guys, I think you guys ejaculate more than we do. I hope you guys understand.
Yes.
Like, you guys ejaculate more than we do. We release an egg every once a month. And, yes, we have other eggs to have, but y'all go with the flow with it. So y'all gonna need to put a wraps on that. Okay.
Oh, they be nutting in everything.
Okay,
On
be nutting
everything.
in
Listen.
Stop.
I need y'all to put a
Hello.
wrap and a cap on that.
Listen, any and on, in and on everything. And
Okay. We only can get pregnant, maybe we can
like,
get pregnant a lot, but I need y'all to.
I mean, it's like every 9 months, and there's the off chance that you could have twins from two different, or
13th reason.
yeah,
Nick Cannon
right.
has another kid every 3 days. So
Listen.
Look, the Mother's Day jokes were flying yesterday, and I have been screaming.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I feel like y'all really do need to talk about how y'all.
They do. They do.
Y'all do.
They really do, because it's like, I feel like, and this is just my opinion, from what I've seen with any type of discourse that happens to come online, or you happen to just be ear hustling, like it's like they almost feel like it's makes them less of a man yes, it makes them less of a man to actually properly use protection or be able to take care of themselves and things like that. And it's like, what is that?
What exactly? Like, what's
like what is that? What's behind that? Because they were talking about the for men where they could do like the wash, on their testicles, and it's supposed to, however it works, it's supposed to, keep them from reproducing for a short amount of time. You just have to keep doing it. But it's like easy, like, because sometimes birth control, it works, but sometimes it works against you. Because there are plenty of stories of birth control doing the complete opposite of what it says. And you have something where you can just simply sit your balls in it and it washes it or whatever. And, it goes back to, you go back to your sperm count goes back to normal after however long it said. So it's not like they're making it hard. And then for guys who are like, oh, well, I don't like the way condoms feels, you are a damn lie.
You're just a nasty man. You're just a nasty man. Just say you like. Just say it. You say
the amount of men I've heard that excuse from.
I've heard that.
Too damn many. It's ridiculous. It's like, well, I don't like how being pregnant feels. So y'all just gonna
right, because y'all all didn't collectively just go numb all of a sudden when a condom came out. Like, stop it.
Child, look, I've had enough intercourse to know that the shit don't feel too different.
Listen,
it don't.
Like you gonna get yours, my dude. Just keep. It's okay. It's okay. Just use the condom, bro. Because
it's okay. Like the amount of I've heard that several times. Like, I don't like using condoms. You're just nasty. That's just what it is.
Exactly.
So just
nasty and lazy.
You nasty and lazy. You nasty and lazy. Okay, but it's most definitely like you guys can get a vasectomy. Vasectomy works, and it's also reversible. Like with birth control, with us, I don't think y'all understand that we gotta have it affects our not just our hormones, but like. It does some crazy shit. It does a lot of crazy shit with our hormones. Like we do gain. We have weight gain and some other shit. But other than that, like it doesn't really help our bodies all that well because we have like a whole bunch of effects that go like acne goes awry, weight goes awry, and emotions go left. And then you'd be wondering like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's my birth control, sweetie. I don't know what to tell you. Like. And then on top of that, the birth control may not even work. So you might end up pregnant with the birth control. So instead of telling us to get all this stuff that's chemically and not great for us, how about y'all try it?
I'm not against this.
How would y'all try it? Like, I'm pretty sure you guys would have.
I want y'all ankles to swell up, and I want y'all backs to hurt. I want you to
have morning sickness every morning.
Yes.
Yeah. Morning sickness.
The heartburn, losing the emotions, hair, diabetes. Like
high blood pressure.
How easy do you think this?
For my wanting to have a kid right now, y'all are doing absolutely. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Like I said, it's a beautiful experience, but if you actually ask, women to be honest, it sounds horrifying. And just think what they were doing, like before they even had a lot of stuff, because they still screw up now. They still screw up because, like we said, the mortality rate with Black women giving birth is like, you might want to. And then you also have to have people that advocate for you when you aren't able to, because sometimes these hospitals and doctors do the complete opposite of what you need or what may be best for you. They're doing what's most convenient. Mm-hmm. So it's a process. It can be easy for some. Some it's the most terrifying moment of their life. But either way it go, you don't have the right to force them to experience that before they're ready, whether it's a beautiful, terrifying experience or it's, whatever type of experience. You don't have the right to put somebody in that, predicament. Yes, we do need to be responsible and understand who we have sex with, because we all know sex can end up, besides orgasm, it can end up with other ways. But at the same time, like, I mean, if they're going to do that, they need to go ahead and start passing out these $25 vasectomies.
$25. Like, listen.
Right? Because like I said,
Listen.
women have to have, permission to get their tubes tied, but men can literally set an appointment, go and have their little snip, which is also reversible, the way as having your tubes tied is reversible, with no questions asked. With no questions asked.
Not to mention, like getting your tubes tied takes a lot, like a major surgery, like pretty much a major surgery, because you have to cut this open. The second they just make a little incision in the balls and just snip and just sew it back up, and then you're done, friend.
And then you add some ice to it after a week, you're good. Like, come on now. What's wrong with y'all?
At the end of the day, it takes two people to make a child, and like the responsibility can't just be on the woman. Like all like the birth control and you shouldn't dress a certain way, which is bullshit. Or bull crap. Sorry, I know it's your podcast. My bad. But like, like the way it can't. It's always on the woman. Like, don't dress a certain way. Don't be too flirty. You got to be on birth control. Well, you got to do this and you got to do that. It's like, am I having sex with myself? Like, it's two people that are involved in this. Like, both parties need to be. Well, sometimes it's
right. That is. But like, but seriously,
it takes two people. So it's like it can't just be on the woman to be safe.
Because I'm not married.
I'm holding her.
Because I'm not married.
But yeah.
Right. I'm not holding.
Exactly.
Listen, where does child come from? Right. Baby, I know where it's going. Tell you that much.
I know where it's going. Sorry, Stink.
Could you imagine? Not sorry, Stink. Could you imagine like
return to sender?
Return
right. The intercourse is just trash, and you get pregnant anyway. I'd be so pissed.
Listen, because somebody gonna be a single father. Good luck, my boy.
You absolutely
good luck, my boy.
Correct.
Somebody, you be easy.
Wow.
You be
easy, my guy. You enjoy your single father summer.
Listen, you got it.
You a strong black man who don't need no woman.
Listen, be a strong, independent black man. You got this. Make sure you look at the line and you don't put the diaper on backwards. Make sure you look, but you got it. You got it.
We was kings, right?
My thing is,
we was kings. We was kings.
Right?
Right? We was kings.
My thing is if you're forcing me to be a mother, then you need to be forced to be a father. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You gonna force me to be a mother? Oh, 10-4. Yeah.
But like I said, accountability is not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to be like, oh, well, you're the woman. Go ahead. No, player. Listen here. When I say this child has to be on your front porch covered up.
I swear to God.
Baby, burning lines down the street over here talking about, come get your baby. Boy, if you don't get out my front yard, gone. Go get a strong, independent man. Listen. Cut out all that hollering out here for these people coming and ask me about this child you got.
I thought you were a high value man. What happened to that?
What happened? Especially
that's not what you said at the beginning.
Give me real beta. Where's the alpha? Where was alpha?
Wolves take care of their kids.
Exactly.
Wolves take care of their
kids. That is
I'm
exactly how it works. So go ahead.
Man, I'm so glad that I invited y'all to be a part of this panel discussion, because the laughs that I just had within the last 5 minutes have been absolutely top tier. So I definitely appreciate y'all for coming through and having this important discussion with us, and then sharing a few laughs at the end, because I think it is well needed. With that, we are going to go ahead and sign off, because we could talk about this all damn day. But we definitely want to be sure that we allow everyone to promote their platforms here, and so we can go ahead and properly sign off. For those of you who have listened to this episode, once again, we thank you for tuning in to this special edition. You will hear this episode on Wednesday, and you'll hear the fun episode Saturday, because it is important to have this conversation, and it's important for everyone to hear this conversation. So you will hear, this will be the first episode that you hear this week. Please be sure that you pay close attention to what each of these young Black women have had to say. That is the important thing. Like, don't just blow this off as if, oh, they're just talking and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. No, listen very carefully. And if you know, the mantra of this podcast is that we support Black women in each and every way. And that has not changed, and that will not change. And that is one of the most important things about this episode, is that this was the ladies' night to discuss this issue. So I definitely appreciate all of the women that have come here. So let's go ahead and wrap this up, and we will start with Miss Cam. If you could please promote your podcast one more time.
All right. So again, guys, Cam Kicks is my name. If you listen to our pod Inside the Mind of a Blerd, shout out to my podcast members and our listeners. You can definitely find me running through the Twitter streets acting like I've had no home training, like whatsoever. So Misha KT, you can talk words at me. I may not always talk them back, but you can definitely do that. And then also follow the pods, Blerd Mind podcast. Follow our page, and yeah, just definitely talk with us. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I've definitely enjoyed hearing the ladies' opinion and talking with them, and definitely thanks to Ked for reaching out to, discuss this, and not even to just like give him a pat on the back. I'm giving a pat on the back because anytime you kind of give recognition, I'm glad that you are seeing that this is something that definitely affects Black women and it needs to be discussed. So definitely good on you for that. And it's not like no pick me or no simp shit now, because child, I be done anywho's. But definitely thank you for that. And anything else, like I said, guys, definitely find me on these Twitter spaces and follow the other ladies if they want you to. Now don't take it from me, like, because you definitely don't want to run into Panda on Twitter. You definitely don't want to run into her on Twitter, because she'll clear you quick. But again, thank you, and I've enjoyed talking with you ladies. And again, Misha KT on Twitter. Shout out to my pod, and give us a listen, and hopefully I can be back again.
Yes, ma'am. We thank you for coming in and promoting yourself, and thank you for being a part of this conversation. I definitely really appreciate you coming through. Panda, please go ahead and promote the podcast.
What's up, y'all? Of course, like I said, my name is Panda Da Don from Worst Generation Podcast. Follow us at Worst Gen GEN Pod POD on Twitter. Follow us, subscribe to the Patreon. Make sure y'all tune in every Thursday night at 8:30 CST for Anime After Dark, where we talk about different anime topics, nerd-related topics, like topics related to nerd culture and everything. So tune in. I'm one of the moderators. Host about Worst Generation Podcast, as well as Blandame Podcast. Shout out to them. Follow me. I'm very nice on Twitter, so don't let these people fool you. I'm very, very kind. Follow me at Panda _Da Don. That's PANDA_DADON. Yeah, just follow me, follow the pod. Make sure you tune in After Dark. Shout out to my podcast and all the other podcasts. Of course, Cam already mentioned Inside the Mind of a Blerd, My Check Waifu, Blandame, of course, Black Anime, TsundEri, and everyone. But thank you for having me. Of course, I always love being on here, so I really appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Not a problem. And thank you for joining us again for the fourth time on this platform. We really appreciate always hearing your voice. TsundEri, please go ahead and promote your platform, ma'am.
Yeah, so follow or subscribe to TsundEri on YouTube. Follow at TheTsunderi on Twitter and Instagram, and the under TsundEri on TikTok. Again, I talk about anything anime and manga related. Sometimes I'm funny, I've been told. So yeah, I really appreciate being invited onto this topic. This is something that's really important to me, and I appreciate you really prioritizing getting like Black women's voices involved in this discussion. So thanks for having me here. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. And I still appreciate you for coming in for your second round on the Chaotic Culture podcast. Before we sign off, of course, I always like to ask my co-hosts if they have any closing arguments or if they have any Black businesses that they want to highlight real quick before I do the list and then before I sign off.
Black businesses, y'all definitely go get y'all smoothies from the Juice and Life Bar. They're actually opening a new location in Williamsburg, so definitely go check that out. It's definitely Black owned, vegan, the best smoothies out there, so definitely go check that out. Also, y'all already know I love to encourage y'all to go seek therapy, seek assistance, get some self-healing. Baby, we're in a season that we need to get healed, and we're healing, okay? So I need y'all to, whatever that is, whether that's prayer, whether that's meditation, whether that's going to seek a therapist or a counselor, I need y'all to do it because it is necessary, okay? We gonna get healed, okay? And we're gonna seek some healing. And that is that.
It's a fact. I like that vibe. I just want to say thank you to answering my questions. I believe that, you know, this subject is something that needs to be talked about on all platforms. It can't just be something that is just talked about now. I'm promoting podcasts. I'm promoting everybody on my end verbally. Like, social media is one side of it, but actually talking to people, breaking down barriers, and getting back to what it's supposed to be when it really boils down to it. Actually talking to people, you know, like picking people's brains to see like where they're at mentally. You know, it's one thing to talk about it, but you got to be about it too. So like, you know, if you meet like-minded people, or you might meet people that are learning something from you, it's different perspectives to it. And so I ain't gonna say too much of anything. Like I said, again, thanks, many thanks for, you know, answering the questions and talking about this.
All right, man. All right. So in my rundown here, before I begin, once again, I'd like to thank all the ladies for coming and being a part of this. As we've said, the conversation needs to be had, and as Law stated, and not just on this platform, but just anywhere that we can get the opportunity to talk about it, we need to talk about it. And on top of that, we want to be sure that all of us are getting involved one way or another to be sure that women's rights are not tread upon. So, especially Black women's rights. So, I just am really appreciative of you guys being able to be a part of this. And I'm appreciative of the support that we have within our little small community here. Before I forget, also shout out to Aries Cats. Was that Sushi or was that Wasabi that was crawling over you earlier?
That was Sushi, and if you heard me like go like, and I turned the camera off, she was climbing my TV, and that's why I had to like go. Wait, can y'all see me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she tried to climb the TV, so I had to grab her, wrap her in a little burrito, and that's why she kept trying to escape me while I'm talking.
Okay.
She's on one today. Yeah. Yeah. And she's still out running around.
I see. Yo, Sushi is your problem child, but you know, shout out to the two cats that you have. Definitely they are they always make some sort of appearance, to always make a highlight anytime that we are involved in any of these discussions. So definitely shout out to them.
Whether I want them to or not.
Said what? Whether you want them to or not.
Whether I want them to or not. Yeah.
Very astute point. Very astute point. All right. Panda actually listed a lot of the podcasts that we highlight, but I did want to go over it one more time. Obviously, for our podcast shout outs, we have Mike Check Wifey Worst Generation Pod, Anime Podcast, Dad Needs to Talk, the Art Podcast, Analytical, where shit gets critical. These are the anime podcasts that we support, and of course, there's always more that we support in our community as well. But I wanted to highlight these 6 as always. 3 of them out. Of course, I am a Patreon subscriber to Worst Gen, Mike Check, and Blanime. So please be sure that you check out those podcasts as well. As always, inside the mind of a Blerd, I have now gotten the opportunity to not only have Scuba Steve on here, but now I got a chance to have Cam on here. So eventually we may get all 9 on here one of these days, but it's been an honor and a pleasure to have both of them on this platform. The session with Jay and Trey, which is actually the episode that we're going to drop this weekend. We finally got a chance to do the joint episode, so definitely check that out. And Brutal Honesty with K. Renee. Please be sure that you check out her podcast as well as her line of novellas. Her pen name is Sedona Rose. Please be sure that you check those out on Amazon Kindle. For our Black content creators, of course, for the YouTube pages, Black Anime, HBCU Anime, and TsundEri. Please be sure that you check out all 3. For our Twitch streamers, please be sure that you check out the Geechee Gamer. Shout out to our girl Kiana, as well as Akatsuki Kells. For the other ones, we have Icarus Metro Comics. Definitely shout out to my boy Calvin, and Studio Maho with Pat Yende and the whole team over there. For the Black businesses, to my boy Dre, shout out Already Paid. Shout out to KSS Brand with our girl Christina, Cream Cosmetics with our girl Naima, Mind Over Money with our girl Tremaine, Concept Moon with my boy Strange Keith. She designs too, my girl Erin, Lip Wands with Lauren and T. And of course, H4 Creative with our girl Zenobia. Please be sure that you check out those Black businesses, those Black content creators, and those podcasts that we have mentioned. With that, once again, thank you to all the ladies that have been a part of this program here. I definitely appreciate it. And it was also important to have this. I know last year, for my audience around this time, we actually dropped the birthday episode. I had just turned 30 last year. By the time that you hear this episode, I would have already been 31 because my birthday is Tuesday, May 10th. So all I want to say is that with 31 comes new lessons and new blessings on top of that, and just new wisdom in general. We are definitely going to move this podcast in the right direction. So if you haven't heard the announcements, obviously we are still looking for 2 new co-hosts to join us as well, a Black male and a Black female. Definitely want to have expanded voices on this podcast. So please be sure that you, if you have any inquiries about that, send me an email at chaoticculture1@gmail.com, or you can DM me on any of our social media pages, which, speaking of which, be sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the Chaotic Culture Podcast. Be sure that you follow us on Facebook at Chaotic Culture Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at chaotic_culture and on Instagram at Chaotic Culture Pod. Please be sure that you subscribe to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Chaotic Culture Pod. You can subscribe on any of the 4 levels. It does not matter which one. We appreciate your support. You can also subscribe to us through the Anchor app at anchor.fm as well. You can follow me, Cat the Pro, that's K3D the Pro, on all social media. You can follow Law on Instagram at L.JR_96 and on Twitter at Law96_. And last but not least, you can follow Miss Nasa at _CallMeNasa on all social media. This has been another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast. Until next time, folks, remember, embrace the culture. Chaos rules. Be blessed. Be safe. God is love. Deuces.
Peace.
1.
Bye now. See y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Look, it's chaos in these streets, so let's talk about it, please. Let's hold some conversation. You see where I'm coming from. Yes, it's so amazing. Go ahead, get comfortable. You can grab a seat, take a load off your feet. Yeah, welcome to the table. We don't tell no lies over here. This ain't no fable. We just live our lives over here. We ain't no angels. We just shine our light over here. We got the power. We just showing love over here. Cause everybody needs some, yeah. And we don't need a reason.